Welcome to Sunrise Hill.
Why, hello.
If you love listening to this show, please consider giving a rating and a review on Amazon Alexa or wherever you listen. We want to continue bringing you this amazing content, and part of our ability to do that means that we need a big audience. Now, it may not seem like much, but rating and reviewing the show will help more people find us, just like how you found this show. Simply on any podcast platform, search for a show, scroll down to the bottom, and push 5 stars. It's that easy. Thanks for supporting the show. So today I'm joined by Dr. Nicola Kimm, who is the Global Head of Sustainability, Environment, Health, and Safety for Signify. Welcome to the show today.
Hi, Scott. Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, you have a terrific background, and it's nice to meet another fellow economist. And I'm just curious to know how your background eventually led you to the role that you're currently in today.
Yeah, actually, I started out as a biologist and then shifted to chemical engineering and later did a PhD in economics. And I think what's great about my background is I actually worked in different industries, also in operations and innovation. So seeing a lot of different parts of a company, and from factories to designing, reactors and all kinds of aspects of a company, and also different industries, so chemicals, electronics, food industry. And I think what really helps in shaping sustainability, the strategy of a company, is being able to understand also very much the operational side of it, how to reduce your impact.
Well, you truly are a Renaissance woman. It's rare to find people that can actually traverse so many different verticals and different functions, and it just probably a reflection of a great intellect and capacity. Let's talk a little bit about Signify. I think many people are familiar with the household brands, but maybe not the parent entity, and also your role within the company.
Yeah, so Signify is the largest lighting company in the world. It has its roots in Philips. So it started as Philips 130 years ago. And 3 years ago, we had an IPO. We separated as a lighting company. And we've got the Philips brand, which is for consumer and professional lighting, and also the Interact brand, which is for connected professional lighting. And my role in the company is covers both the strategic and communication side of sustainability, but also kind of the nuts and bolts of bringing sustainability into the innovation, into the products, and also environment, health, and safety for our factories.
Yeah, I think one of the themes that I love to explore kind of throughout this conversation is this notion that when we talk about sustainability, it isn't just this kind of abstract concept, but it's how do you actually then permeate and integrate that into the operation, the supply chain, manufacturing, and the entire kind of end-to-end. And it's those details that really makes all the difference in the world, which brings us to the fact that you recently made a public statement indicating that Signify is now carbon neutral. And it's ahead of your target as well as some of the Paris Agreement targets. What does that mean, and how has Signify achieved particularly this milestone?
Yeah, 5 years ago, we set the ambition to be carbon neutral in 2020. And in fact, over the last 10 years, we've decreased our operational footprint by more than 70%. And when we say we're carbon neutral, it covers scopes 1 and 2, so our factories, all of our electricity, but also parts of scope 3, which is our logistics and our business travel. So it's involved hundreds of initiatives across the company. And we also went to, in order to get to 100% renewable electricity, we invested in power purchase agreements. So we've got one in Texas and one in Poland. And Poland was especially important for us. We were the first multinational to invest in a virtual power purchase agreement in Poland. And that represents 25% of our electricity needs. And it was really important for us to help shift that electricity market from a coal-based one to a more renewable one. And we were the first to invest in solar energy in the Gulf region. And since we're a manufacturing company and we still have some unavoidable emissions, we also invest in offsets which have social and environmental benefits, like solar off-grid energy in India and reforestation projects. And actually we involve employees, so employees get to vote on the projects they feel most strongly about.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of aspects that we can cover there. First of all, I think it's important, to your point, that there is a kind of a reasonable framework to work within. As long as you guys are a manufacturing organization, there is going to be that CO2 emission creation. But going back to the Poland example, Poland is probably one of the countries that heavily relies on coal. And it was ironic that the climate summit, well, I think it was intentional that one of the climate summit happened to be there. And it's to reflect the fact that their industries are very legacy based, and it's so much of the labor force and the economics is tied to coal, yet, they're really, you need to turn things around. So it's nice to see that there's been intentional power purchase agreements, desire to consume more of the renewable energy. Now, you also mentioned, some of the offset credits, which again is part of the mix. I wonder what percentage, if you can give us a breakdown of offsets, power purchase agreements versus just kind of operation efficiencies that you guys have put in that nets out the neutral aspect. Yeah,
well, if you look at the last decade, the reduction has been about 70%. So you could say, looking back over the last 10 years, 30% is the remainder, which cannot be offset. And for example, we still run glass furnaces. In order to manufacture glass, you need natural gas to fire the oven. So for things like that, you still require natural gas, or also for flights. There's no alternative for jet fuel in airplanes. So for those minimal things, and if you look at the rest of the footprint, it's split between manufacturing and logistics. So we've made big steps in changing from air freight to sea freight. So sea freight has 34 times less carbon footprint compared to air freight. So that involves better production planning, working with logistics, working with factories in order to make sure customers receive products on time and you don't have to rely on air freight.
So I'm sure there's a lot of, literally underneath the program that you're managing, there's got to be tens of thousands of small to large initiatives that are happening. Can you highlight a few that you think really contributed significantly to some of the key milestones that you've hit?
Yeah, I think what we've done really well over many years is really to embed sustainability in processes. So, for example, in product innovation, product design, take circular economy, for example. So we have design rules which our designers look at during the design process, or it's very much about setting aspirational targets and really building that into the processes. So it doesn't sound it doesn't sound spectacular, but actually, if it's well done throughout the organization, it's a lot of work. And actually, what has helped us a lot is the integrated reporting, but also having everything which is non-financial reasonably assured. So our external auditor gives us reasonable assurance on everything non-financial. And that means that we have to do everything with a lot of rigor, and we have to make sure there's a lot of ownership in the company, that everything that we say about waste, about diversity, about safety, about energy use of our products, it enhances the credibility and the ownership in the company to make sure all statements and all claims towards our targets are met.
Yeah, I think when it comes to attestation, assurance, it's really auditing against what your stated objectives and goals are. So it's really keeping you guys honest. So the third-party auditing, I agree. I think it helps. Certainly not the full picture. But again, I wanted to kind of go back to the fact that this notion of sustainability is starts actually very early, to the point, like I said, even in the design aspects. And sometimes in the design, I wonder if there are engineering trade-offs, for example, in terms of optimization, in this case, let's say lighting performance, relative to either the production, creation, and the maintenance of it, and then the recycling aspects of it, or the refuse aspects of it. What are some of the kind of trade-offs that you've seen on the design side that has permeated all the way through the life cycle of a product development?
Yeah, well, one design element that we've been kind of struggling with over the last year is we made a commitment to remove plastics from our consumer-facing packaging. And this was done out of conviction. Our CEO is very concerned about ocean plastics. And in fact, within the company, there was some resistance because we thought, okay, how will all the customers accept it? We have to redesign our operations. We have to redesign the packaging. There's costs involved. There's efforts involved, and also working with the retailers to redesign all the shelving. And in fact, in this case, it was a win-win situation because not only was the new, more sustainable packaging welcomed by customers, but also it saves CO2, saves costs related to bill of material costs, saves logistics costs. So that one, sustainability and cost savings went hand in hand. If I think about product design, one of the things we've committed to with our new program is doubling revenues from circular products from 16% of our total revenues to 32% of our revenues. And those are products which really extend the product lifetime. They preserve value, they reduce waste. And designing products for circular economy means they're designed in a modular way, they're designed for upgradability, for disassembly. And designing products in that way requires more resources. It's a more sophisticated way of designing a product. And one concern is that there's no level playing field then. If you have a circular product, will consumers be willing to buy that product if it's more expensive? And we anticipate that in the next few years, there's probably going to be legislation in the EU requiring lighting products to be built in a more circular way. But we've said, okay, we don't know if this legislation will come. We want to make the commitment to make our products more circular. But we don't know, if without a level playing field, if it will be warranted from a business perspective.
Yeah, there's certainly a few areas to again kind of uncover a little bit. Is that going back to the removal or reduction of plastic and packaging as an example. It happened to be a win-win, and I think one of the key messages that we just need to, from a storytelling, reinforce over and over again is that sustainability isn't always about adding additional cost to the structure, but rather it's actually stripping out the cost in some ways, and that in the long run, it's actually has a greater payback period and a greater IRR built into it. So sustainability, it doesn't have to necessarily be perceived as a burn. Now, with that said, I think there is a kind of a reasonable reality that these initiatives are not easy, to change the design, the manufacturing, the supply chain, and working with the retailers, the distribution. These are really hard work, and it's time consuming, and there's real expenses associated with those changes. So I just wanted to kind of recognize that. As far as this notion of circular, first, can you first define it? Because not everybody perceives it in the same way. And what does it mean for the lighting products to be circular?
Yeah, so it's very important for us to have a very clear definition of what we mean with circular. It means products which are built for a circular economy. That means luminaires, which are circular. That could be that they're upgradable. They're built for disassembly. We're also designing lighting with 3D printing. So we're the first company to commercially produce 3D printed luminaires. It's also about replaceable parts, so replaceable components, which increase the lifetime of the luminaire. It's about circular services, so services in which we maintain the lighting over the time of the ownership. So we commit to taking back the lighting products at the end of contract or upgrading them. And then fourthly, it's about intelligent systems. So with systems, we're able to track assets, we're able to see where maintenance needs to be done. So it's also to increase the lifetime. It's all around preserving value, increasing product lifetime.
Yeah, I think this is really fascinating because I think most, again, enterprise, I think, probably understands this a little bit better, but for the mainstream consumers, when they purchase some sort of a lighting product, they think in terms of a single unit, when in fact that single product has many components that goes into it. So rather at the end of that life cycle, just simply throwing or recycling, try to recycle for some, you're basically saying it becomes multiple components that can be switched out.
Exactly.
Can be upgraded to maybe higher lumens, for example. So that means that we're basically in kind of a net in aggregate, reducing the potential waste. And because we're able to reuse certain key components, it just maximizes value for everyone. Now, of course, for you guys, I think you guys are smart to think about, kind of rethinking the kind of monetization model. So thinking of it as almost like a SaaS model, service and maintenance, is a very interesting notion as well, because, when we think about certain products like yours, there's a certain velocity or pace at which people are going to replace light bulbs. And if that doesn't happen, but they're only replacing a component of that, it really does kind of have a direct impact on the bottom line. So really thinking through kind of the entire stack of value add is tremendously valuable. Now, I know we've been focused primarily on consumer conversation, but can you talk about at the enterprise, and you start to get into that a little bit around the value, the data, what does it mean for large organizations that implement your solutions?
Yeah, so in fact, 75% of our turnover is B2B. So we work closely with other companies that also have sustainability ambitions. And as part of our new program, also, we've committed to double the pace of the Paris Agreement. So now that we're carbon neutral in our operations for our own company, we thought over the last year, what's next? How can we increase our impact over our value chain? And what we want to do is double the pace of the Paris Agreement 1.5 degree scenario so that we reach it 6 years early. So what Paris says in 2031, we want to reach in 2025. And that only works by producing products, connected products, LED and solar, to help reduce the footprint of our customers. So in fact, that reduction is 500 times our own operational footprint. And so, our customers have ambitions to go carbon neutral. We want to facilitate that transition. And LED is seen as one of the leading low carbon technologies. And we're really an industry in transition, changing from conventional business to the LED business. And we see that between now and 10 years from now, the amount of electricity used for lighting globally is going to be cut by half, from about 15% to about 8%. And so we really want to help the whole value chain to reduce their emissions. And you mentioned data, so it's not just about energy use, but customers have different needs now. So it's about data using lighting products as sensors. So for example, for street lighting, we can improve safety and security of cities by having lights turn on at the right time. So you can reduce street crime, you can reduce traffic accidents. For health and well-being, by having the right sensors, how to adjust lighting to improve people's performance throughout the day. Also, with smart sensors, you can look at the growth of plants. So one of our businesses is in horticulture. You can use smart lighting to help plant growth, to optimize yield, to optimize quality. And so now we see that, our last Brighter Lives, Better World program was all about reducing carbon footprint, providing energy efficiency. And our new program is really about solving different societal needs, like providing safety and security, food availability, health and well-being. So we see that lighting can do so much more than just save energy.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And I think, again, when we look at it at a macro global level, I mean, when we, and probably a good way to kind of frame this properly is when we think about in terms of mega cities and the kind of energy consumption, it really is electricity that's probably one of the biggest, aside from, let's say, heating, in terms of some of the gas consumption. So you are really, as the largest, producer of various lumen-based products, are having a direct impact in terms of providing the value, but yet still being able to reduce the footprint and the consumption of electricity. So I think it's very significant. The other thing that you mentioned, which was quite interesting, is that we don't really think of lighting in the context of some of these kind of verticals that I'm sure within your corporate organization you guys talk regularly about, but safety and horticulture, in the case of indoor farming, for instance, because of drastic changes in climate, more and more there's going to be a significant rise in indoor farming as well as vertical farming, and all of that is going to be really dependent upon exactly these artificial lights that you're referring to. So there's a lot that can be done to really help social issues, and it's interesting how light is so fundamental to that. And of course, you kind of start to get into, but you didn't cover as much around the wellness and the impact of light that has in our working condition, and certainly as people transition to working remotely, and the kind of artificial lights that we're under, including lighting from the PCs and laptops, that also has an effect on our wellness and mental health as well.
Yeah, and so related to health and well-being, and in addition to the human-centric lighting that I mentioned, we also produce UVC lighting, which kills viruses, especially the one for responsible for COVID in a few seconds. So that's something we're working on now to expand our production of that. And the food production you mentioned in vertical farming. Vertical farming with the right lighting can actually reduce water usage in farming by 90%. You don't need pesticides. You decrease farm to fork distance. You decrease food waste. So there's so many advantages, and we even see the food quality increases and nutritional value. So we've made hundreds of recipes catered specifically for different crops to optimize those things.
So for the remaining few minutes that we have, the area that I want to kind of explore a little bit with you is that sometimes people on the climate change or climate activist side, there's a kind of a sub-camp that feels that no matter what the corporations or brands are doing, it's not sufficient. So some may argue that carbon neutral is great, but really we need to get to carbon negative to really start to reduce and address what's already out there. But I think one of the areas that I want to explore with you is this notion that when brands and large brands like yours are making significant strides, that we need to celebrate and to reinforce that and use that as case studies for other corporations that are maybe not as progressive in some of their key objectives. What can you share in terms of acknowledging the incremental progress and really looking more optimistically rather than really focusing on kind of the shortcomings? Yeah.
I mean, I think what's key is really engaging everyone, getting everyone to be part of it, and making it very genuine. So it starts with the leadership to believe in it and really emphasize it, and to make some bold steps. So, for example, 25% of the leaders' bonus is linked to sustainability because we consider it to be equal importance to some financial indicators. And also with external recognition. So, for example, we won the leadership position in the Dow Jones Sustainability Index the last 3 years. And then employees start to feel proud and they want to be part of it. They want to contribute to it. So what we're doing is getting people more involved because everybody is our ambassador. And it's really, it's built pride and people want to work for Signify because of sustainability.
I agree. And I think it's really about the storytelling and the culture building and building these kind of incentive structure, even those that are qualitative and things that are kind of intrinsic for people as well. So mission focus is really what you're referring to. Is there anything else around the Brighter Lives and Better World program that you like to share that we haven't covered already?
No, I think we've covered it. So we were really, we've put a stake in the ground. We want to double our positive impact over the next 5 years. And we're starting on our journey to do more. So really looking forward to the next few years.
So with that, I've been joined by Dr. Nicola Kimm, who is the Global Head of Sustainability, Environment, Health, and Safety for Signify. Thanks for joining today.
Thanks, Scott.
If you've enjoyed this episode, take a moment to rate our show on any podcast platform that you listen to. Scroll down to the bottom and push 5 stars. It's that easy. And as always, thanks for listening.